Have you ever imagined what would it look like if it was more gruesome, more intense, and it took itself less seriously? And also, the main threat was in black and white? Well, you have to think no more because there is a movie out there and about that is like the wet dream of a B-series movie fanatic. There is this movie that is basically like a love child in between it and every other Series B movie that you could think of, and here we have Terrifier, a movie that came here to be so defiant against the stereotype of the horror movie trope that everybody was exhausted about that we just needed to make an overdrawn video explaining it and criticizing it because there's a lot to unpack here. First conceived in the movie All Hallows Eve, where Art the Clown had his first dip into superstardom, where he was in a short movie because All Hallows Eve is basically on the same format as VHS is, so it's basically like a compilation that is taking place at the same time at like another movie, so it's like many mini movies inside a movie. Yeah. Okay, so while that was happening, art was on the back burner of our mind, and that happened in 2013. So, a few years later, in 2016, Art had his taste in super fame because his movie was released and then a star was born. But before getting into the summary and critique of this movie, it's important that I introduce myself.
Salute nomás.
Oh hi, I'm the Van Slaughter and I'm your favorite rock star. And I'm here with this hair looking like a Taylor Swift reject if she wanted to pursue rock music, so I guess we will just have to stick with it. I'm trying out new styles and this was definitely not a very good one, but in any case, this is the only channel here on YouTube that is produced by someone who was abducted by a vampire marmot. And remember that I can be your Fiverr editor, so link below. So, just before getting into the actual movie, I have a lot of things to say, and one of the main ones is that this movie has sort of a misogynistic tinge to it, because most of the gruesome deaths that occur in this movie are either solely reserved for females, or females are the ones who will get the worst deaths possible. So, I mean, I'm not entirely sure if this movie purpose was to be misogynistic or it just happened to be and it was a casualty because it's a trope in this type of movies that there's a final girl and that girls and boys will get brutal deaths, and yes, boys also and men also have horrible deaths in these movies, but it's just that it triggers my misogyny radar, so yeah, I mean that's my only complaint to begin with, so we can now move on with the movies, I guess. So the movie starts with an interview, and in this interview there was someone who was looking rather daunting, and we're not entirely sure what happened yet, but there's an incident that was disclosed, but we don't know what happened on that accident yet. Then in the next scene we are introduced to someone who is doing things. I mean, it could be a get ready with me, I don't know. And on the backstage, the interviewer, which we will call her Barb, like Barbara, because she is very mean and she was about bad talking the poor victim who was a victim, which I will give her name in a moment. So Barb was deciding to be ableist, and of course she was making fun and stating things like, if I were ever to look like that, please put me out of my misery.
Do me a favor. If I ever look like that, promise me you'll put me out of my misery.
And her wishes were actually very prompted very soon, because the woman who was brutally ravaged, who was giving out the interview, who was the interviewee basically, decided to took a little scratch off the face of Barb. So now Barb was also left disfigured, and Vicky, or Vic, who is the ravaged woman, like the one with the mangled face, the one who was being interviewed, not the one who now has the mangled face, found this very funny. So this was actually like a very good joke for her, because comedy, I guess. Then we are introduced to two friends who were highly intoxicated, thus they couldn't drive, and while they were wandering around and about on the city, which is actually a scarier place than any horror movies, if you live in one, you might know. Okay, in any case, they came across Michael Jackson. Nah, I'm just kidding. They came across Art the Clown, and he was just staring at them quite seducingly or menacingly, could be either of both, and one of them, which had the black hair, said to the other with the blonde hair, which we don't know their names yet, like, I'm going to effing kill you. I just had to say to myself, well, darling, you don't have to say that no more, because in this movie it is quite possibly that that person who was staring menacingly at you will do the favor for you, so just to put that out there.
What's your number? Fucking kill you. Come buy us dinner. Stop.
When they were at the pizza shop, they were talking nonsense, and Art the Clown decided to invite himself in the pizzeria and started molesting them, because that's what every male does at a place where there are females, just start molesting them, because why not? And he was just staring at them rather weirdly, so I had to ask to myself, can you imagine this at any other movie? Like,
so if you're from Africa, why are you white?
My butt. I mean, it's just a silly old butt with no tan lines. Yep.
V, who is the blonde, which her name is Dawn, decided that she had enough of R just staring at them menacingly, so she decided to molest the molestor. And I mean, does that turns her into the anti-hero? And after a series of selfies, I'm pretty sure that Art was so upset at the idea of not getting 1 billion likes, and he had this thought in his mind that he was going to be the next Charlie D'Amelio, and as that didn't happen, he was noticeably upset.
Hey.
So, naturally, he decided to propose to Tara, because that's the cycle of love. So, you stalk someone, you molest them, you rather stare at them menacingly, then you propose to them, and then you go out to the bathroom to make some fine art with excrement, and then you get kicked out of the restaurant for doing so. So yes, that's what I definitely call the cycle of love. Aww. So now Tara and Dawn got out of there, and the tires of Dawn were slashed, so Tara decided to call Vic, who in this temporary line was the first victim before all of this occurred, with a normal face and being a normal person. So okay, Tara called Vic, or Vicky, to ask for a ride because the tires were slashed, and Vicky was hesitant at first, but after the roomie of Vic decided to enter herself in the room and start to make babies, if you know what I mean, Vicky decided that yes, she was going to go. So in the meantime, in the pizzeria, Art decided to turn the boss who kicked him out into fine art. So he basically just like beheaded him and do some funny scribbles with the head. And then the other poor minimum wage employee who had already an entire miserable life, not being treated decently and having probably poor conditions, poor laboral conditions, was now also mangled by Art the Clown, because Art does not respect minimum wage employees. So we could basically state that Art is sort of a Karen, or it's like the ultimate Karen.
It doesn't work like that. It takes days. I want to talk to the manager. Okay, 1 second. Hi, how can I help you? What the f?
In any case, Tara decided to invite herself into the bathroom of a building where disposable character number 3 is introduced to us, and this character will come in hand later, but for now he was just like for giving access for Tara to the building, and Tara used the disgusting bathroom of that building, and Don, who was left in the car, heard in the radio that on the pizzeria there were some gruesome deaths by the hands of a clown.
Thin man wearing a black and white clown costume and carrying a large garbage bag.
No way.
And guess what happened next? So Art, who has not taught himself manners, decided to invite himself into the car, where he just basically kidnapped Dawn. Or it's not shown, but it's pretty assumable that something happened with Dawn, and whatever happened to her is not a good thing.
Believe what I just heard on the radio.
Tara lost herself in the building and she came across disposable character number 4, which disposable character number 4 was actually sort of nonsense, but at the same time she gave a glimpse of brilliancy with a phrase that stated, "Punctuality is the thief of time." So next time that I arrive 3 hours late to the job I hate, I will now know what to say.
Punctuality is the thief of time, dear.
In any case, Tara was wandering all about in the building when she came across Michael Jackson. Yet again. No, I'm just kidding. She came across Art the Clown, who was looking at her rather menacingly, with a scalpel on his hand. So, you know that's a call for trouble, and of course Tara made the very wise movement of running, and they were playing like sort of hide and seek, but eventually Art was able to cut the feet of Tara, and he was stabbing it rather non-consensually, because again, Art has no manners with women. I don't know if he took lessons from Sneeko, from all the other Manosphere dudes, but you do not stab people that gave no consent. It's a bad joke, of course. In any case, Tara was about to be torn into fine art, but Tara decided to stab Art with a scalpel that was now on the floor. Well, she basically stabbed Art, but I mean, have we not learned anything from Zombieland? Like, you double tap your aggressor. You do not leave them alive. If they are trying to murder you, you end that person. You do not want to leave them alive. I repeat, you do not want to leave them alive.
The double tap.
Pig was driving there relentlessly, and then Tara came across disposable character number 3, which was her only glimpse of salvation, but he had headphones on so he couldn't hear the commotion, and Tara was kidnapped by Art, and then she woke up restrained to a chair, in which Art was trying to play rather violently with her, but in reality he didn't hurt her here. But what he did is he put out the grand reveal, which that grand reveal was done upside down with her tatas all out and about. So if you know anything about history, you know that this is not going to end well for the poor Don. And of course, as Art has not learned manners, he decided to saw Don in two. And while that was happening, Tara decided to break free from her restraints and she actually punched Art on the face and then escaped for a while. But again, she had the opportunity to finish him, but she didn't. So, as Tara was finally almost about to double tap Art the Clown, she was shot in the leg. And if horror movies, especially Series B horror movies, have taught us anything, is that Tara was supposed to be the final girl, so there was going to happen something magical that was going to make her survive everything and anything that was thrown in her way. But unfortunately, that didn't happen, and she was turned into a pincushion. Well, Art wanted to turn her face into a pincushion, and while all of that was happening, disposable character number 4 was watching the commotion, and she actually was able to experience firsthand the horrors of legalizing weapons. So, well, now you know the horror of legalizing weapons. Like, things like this could happen, I guess. Disposable characters of this movie found themselves and they were talking about a murderous clown, and of course disposable character number 3 didn't believe disposable number 4 because he's a male and males usually don't believe females when there are like danger situations in movies for some reason. In any case, when disposable 3 was left alone, he was slightly bumped in the head with a mace by the hands of Art, and while all of that was happening, the doll of disposable number 4, because disposable number 4 had a doll that she treated sort of like her daughter. Well, while all of that was happening, Art was tricking Big into going into the building. So, disposable 4 was able to find Art with the doll in question, and she thought, I don't know in which part of her mind, she thought that hugging the murderous clown, the murderous psychopathic clown, would make him a good person. So she hugged the clown, and we hoped for the best. But while Big was exploring the building, she came across the ugly remains of Dawn, which I mean ugly remains because it was a horrible death. And then she was exploring the building when she came across who she thought was Big. I mean, who she thought was Tara. Because, I mean, Don is a goner now, so it's Tara's turn to be saved. But, and I actually also thought myself that it was Tara, but no. In reality, it was just Art. And this is another misogynistic part of the movie, because disposable character number 4 was scalped alive, and she was debreasted. I need to say something. Art was rocking those taras and that long hair, so it even had like sort of a Marilyn Manson-esque aesthetic to it, so I guess that's a positive in some ways, but in some other ways it's not a positive, but whatever. In any case, Big was now playing hide and seek with Art, and Art was all cutesy and all funny riding his tricycle, and you know, the persecution between these two was almost interesting to say the least. I mean, it was a good persecution, to be honest, because it had tense moments and it actually made you think that she was going to be a goner right there and then. But she was just being like slashed by him or like molested, because I mean all of the other characters had gruesome ends and she didn't, for now. But then disposable number 3 was actually not a goner. Disposable number 3 was still alive and he went in and slightly bumped Art the Clown on the head, and again, double tap people, double tap. But as he didn't double tap, Art came again. I mean, he was never a goner, but he came again on his four senses, and he decided to start thumping at the head of disposable number 3. And have you ever seen those videos where it's like a mechanic press that squashes anything? Like, for example, a watermelon? Well, basically that was the head of that poor human being by the hands of Art the Clown. And Vicky was being molested after running away from Art with the most evil, horrible weapon of all, a clown horn. And long story short, Art ran a truck over Vicky, who was lying dormant on the floor. Well, I mean, she was not dormant, she was unconscious by the hands of Art with his truck. And long story short, Art was feeling a little hungry. You know, one of those times when you are at a sleepover and either you need to draw a male reproductive organ on the face of your friends or you munch at their face. Like, there's no in between, you need to do either of those. Either you draw reproductive organs or you eat their faces. Like, I'm sorry, but there's no in between, especially in a movie like this. So he decided to take maybe a bite or two, or maybe more than a bite, or maybe more than 2 bites, out of Vic's face non-consensually, because remember that Art has no manners. And when the police arrived, they found the most gruesome scene possible, and Art decided to unalive himself, and Vicky was still alive. And then a few days, well, I mean, the temporary line here is not explained very well, but you could assume that Vic was already recovered from her horrible injuries, and Art at the end was still alive, and he was now molesting a poor mortuary assistant. No, a poor mortuary person. So yeah, and that's how this first movie ended. I quite sincerely have a lot of things to say, but I think most of the things that I will say are just like nitpicking at this movie, because to be quite honest, for being a low budget movie, especially for that time and especially for the type of genre it was trying to appeal to, which is series B horror movies, I think it was actually pretty decent. It was gruesome enough to be able to come into the mainstream, and it was innovative and it was creative enough to be able to make it big, where other movies or of the same genre have failed. This movie was basically like if it decided to grow some balls and actually show us how the violence was enacted, because to be quite frank, the movies of it were rather PG-13, and this movie is fully gory. Like, if you want to see brains, if you want to see people getting all horrible and all mutilated, like, this is the movie for you. And what is interesting to me is that these movies, especially the series B horror movies, are getting a resurgence or sort of a renaissance nowadays, and this movie was sort of the predecessor for all of the things that were to come in regards to horror cinema, especially with a genre that was so oversaturated with movies that rely heavily on special effects and on mediocre jump scares, like all of the Conjuring saga. That was basically like the blueprint for all of the horror movies to come. So on that part, I can say that that Terrifier, this film in specific, is a good predecessor for the things to come, and it was actually a defiant movie that was able to break the norm. So for that I appreciate it, but my personal score for it would be like a 6, because I myself don't find movies appealing, and especially not movies that have sort of a misogynistic theme. But again, that's just my perception. If I'm wrong or something, you are free to have your opinion, but at least I don't like to see that much violence enacted against women when there are also male characters that could get the same treatment. So now, a few years later, the same people who work on Terrifier 1 decided to create Terrifier 2, so we will get into Terrifier 2 now. So okay, we already went into Terrifier 1. So Terrifier 2, which is the sequel, which came like 3 years later approximately, is like the mean sister of Terrifier. But it's like the mean sister who is almost an entire... It's like a twin sister, and it's like literally the exact same person, but she decided to get a lot of plastic surgery and more budget for like clothes and makeup and stuff. So it's like a prettier package, it's like a better presentation overall, but it's sort of the same. So yeah, I mean, that's what Terrifier 2 is mainly about. It's almost the same, but prettier, but at the same time worse. So I don't know how to explain it, so we will go into the summary and at the end I will give my afterthoughts. So this movie starts right where the first one left, and Art was molesting the mortician. Is it mortician? Well, Art was molesting the mortuary person, and he decided to yank his throat and leave it all wonky so he couldn't talk, so he went and dialed for 911 and the operator was trying to get some answers and the mortuary wasn't giving any answers at all, which I mean, okay, but I mean, he was being like almost mangled to pieces, so it's understandable. Then Art looked into the mirror and realized that he was missing an eye. So he took envy of the gorgeous, beautiful eyes of the mortuary person, so he decided to gouge one eye out manually and put it into his own eye socket, because why not? And then he just smashed his head and pulled the brain out because Art was feeling curious, because yes. And lastly, what happened is that Art also stole his money, because remember that Art is mean. And it's actually nice to see that now male characters also get savagely ravaged, so that's a positive. So okay, we're already starting in a high note, I guess. But in any case, Art decided that his clothes were mighty disgusting, so he took himself to the laundry station to wash his clothes, and a person was sleeping there, and then Art was laughing at horrible accidents that happen to people because, comedy, I guess, and then he all of a sudden came across someone rather suspicious. But this suspicious person, it's not a person, it's a child, a female child. Well, it was a kid, and this kid decided to shat all over the floor, because I mean, that's what you do when you try to be nice to other people and present yourself to society, I guess. And this character doesn't have a name, so we will call her On Tune Bass Guitar. So for short, she will be called Bajita. So Bajita was like touching the eye of Art, the new eye, and they were playing like the game where you clap and then you pass the hand over. I don't know how that game is called. If you know, please leave it in the comments below. And the person who was sleeping at the entrance of the laundry place, the laundromat, decided to woke up. He saw that Art was just naked there playing alone. So is this a vision that only Art can see? So is Bajita non-existent that only exists in Art's mind? Is Bajita able to produce damage to other people, or is she just like an evil entity? It's not explained, but I guess it adds to the lore and to the mystery. So at the end, Art decided to get his clothes all handsome and all pretty, and at the end he just left. But before leaving, he was actually a gentleman and decided to mop the floor, because Art could be a misogynistic killer clown, but he is not a dirty person, so he will leave everything behind him clean. And of course, the person who was staring rather questionably was murdered, because I mean, yes, he was murdered. So I guess we will go to the next scene. But before going to the next scene, we are introduced to a title card, which is the most horrible part of this movie. No, I'm just kidding. Or am I? Now we are introduced to an unnamed character for now, who is designing a rather interesting guy's costume for her Halloween party or her Halloween night out. And there were some wings that have like a golded frame, and she very responsibly turned off the candles before putting the wings on a stand on her bureau. So that's already a positive, because remember, you always need to turn off your candles. Then we see the mom of the protagonist, and she was working as a call center employee. She was working from home, and I have to admit that working from home at a call center wasn't the worst job that I have had, but it wasn't the best. I mean, it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't a good experience overall. So, I mean, it's also a nice addition to see people in these movies actually being normal human beings and doing regular people things, instead of just being like disposable characters that we have a horrible death. So that's already an improvement on the script, so that gets a positive. And there was a very funny dialogue in that section. I will put it here for you.
All the seats. No, ma'am, not you. Not you.
I don't know the brother's name yet, but this dialogue came to be at the dinner table.
You're doing. You don't see people dressing up as Jeffrey Dahmer or Charles Manson.
I think you're both overreacting.
And it's very funny to note that a few months later, Dahmer was all over the place, and Dahmer had a resurgence, and everybody wanted to mingle with Dahmer, basically, because, I mean, some dudes decided to do like a soft reboot, kind of putting a sexy serial killer, but okay.
Oh my god, what is that? Oh my god!
Sienna and her mom were talking about the strangest behavior and the strange conversations that Jonathan was giving out. And Jonathan is that type of kid who is chronically online, watching things that they shouldn't watch, so I just need to say something right now and here. Please do not allow your kids to be chronically online. Kids shouldn't be online. That's the most horrible part of this movie. Let alone the murders, let alone the violence. The most horrible part is watching the society collapse, because kids are not even only being abandoned emotionally, but they are being left for the internet to raise them, which is the most dangerous place to be, because internet is horrible and you shouldn't use internet for almost anything. If you're a kid. If you're an adult, you do you, baby, but that was just my take on it. Now, Sienna fell asleep watching some infomercials, and in one of those infomercials there was a clown coffee, and Sienna was transported into her dreams to that clown coffee. Now, on this clown coffee, a lot of things were weird, because the people there were insufferable, to say the least, and there was this delightful cereal that was called... what was it called? Art Krispies. Yeah, so Art Krispies are a very nutritious, beautiful, and delightful cereal that contains blades, that contains glass, and contains insects. So a lot of proteins right there. It has a lot of iron, a lot of protein, and very low sugars. So that's a positive, I guess. And then Sienna was just there, like looking all over around, like all confused, like you will do if you were transported to a world like that. And then all of a sudden Art came in, and everybody was dumb clapping at Art being present. And yeah, I hated these people. I hated this audience, and there was a nun who was asking for someone to feed a man, which I don't even know why that was there, but I mean, it's sort of funny, but not really. In any case, Art decided to give to his insufferable audience some candies, and funny enough, these candies were not poisoned and were not like a hazard for people. They were just like regular candies, so that left me a little surprised. But of course, we are talking about Art the clown, not about any other clown. So the insufferable audience kept clapping and kept being happy and smiling at Art, and I was just so tired of that audience and Art as well, so he decided to shoot everybody. So yeah, I mean, thank you Art, because quite honestly they were insufferable. And Sienna was escaping from it, and long story short, Sienna got into the cereal box. But before that, I remember that the banjo girl, who I was so fed up with that girl playing 4 chords on the banjo, like I wanted her to be out of there, and Art read my mind, so he lit fire to her. Because I guess why not? Okay, so Art was about to lit fire to Sienna, because now we know her name. Her name is Sienna, and Sienna deflected the fire with a mighty sword that she pulled out of the cereal for some reason, and when she woke up from the dream she realized that the candles were spewing fire all over the wings because logic. So, okay, I have had some wild dreams before, but never a dream so wilder that I actually had special effects of my room being lit on fire, which I'm mighty appreciative for because I would die if my room were to be lit on fire, but in any case, I guess, well, that happened. And Sienna and her mom had a conversation about it, and I guess that's it for that scene for now. Next day, Art was creating some medieval looking devices to, of course, disembowel people, and Bajita was looking at the TV when she realized that there was the interview of the first movie, and Art was noticeably upset at the idea that they were hinting that he was possibly a goner, so he smashed the TV in retaliation. So I guess Art does not like to be thought of being a goner. Next day, Jonathan arrived to the school where 2 kids were molesting the carcass of an opossum, and I mean, that was weird, but okay. And an adult teacher or some staff of the school thought that they were molesting the carcass of a opossum, so they were sent to the classes or whatever you do in school. I don't remember, sorry, that was like 2 years ago that I went to school, so I don't even remember what's my name. In any case, Jonathan was on the classroom and he was staring at a girl like if she was a fine meatloaf. But then he decided to go to the bathroom or to take water. It wasn't explained, but he just went out to take water, and on the hallways he came across Art and Bajita munching on the remains of the carcass of the opossum, because I mean, you know, it's one of those days when you get hungry and you're like, oh my god, I'm so hungry but I have no money, so you literally came across like a dead animal on the street and you're like, oh my god, this is delicious, and you start eating it. Like, is it just me? Okay. In any case, they tossed the opossum at Jonathan, and Jonathan very noticeably was frightened, so he started running for his life, and then a teacher, another person of the school, stumbled upon Jonathan, and she yelled to him to come back there, but then she continued walking and she found the carcass of the opossum, and they thought that Jonathan did this.
Hey, no running in the hallways! Jonathan, get back here!
We are introduced to the 2 peer friends of Sienna, who unfortunately are disposable character number 2 and number 3 in this movie. And then Jonathan's mom, which she doesn't have a name, or I don't remember her name, she was visited by a school counselor who informed her that his kid was munching on the remains of an opossum or vandalizing the school, which we don't really care about. In any case, Sienna and Leah, I think was the name. Well, Sienna and disposable character number 2 were at the Halloween store when they stumbled upon Art, and now Sienna was very frightened at the store, and Art, for the first time in this movie, remembered that he is a gentleman. So he returned Sienna's purse to her because she was frightened and she ran away from the scene when she saw him. And positive here is that Art was molesting her with glasses, and I have to admit to myself, this scene was actually funny because he was looking very cute with those glasses, especially the ones with the goggly eyes. I like that visual, I don't know why. Okay, in any case, then Art decided to molest Sienna with the most brutal, horrible weapon you could possibly think of, a clown horn. Long story short, Sienna left the store, and if you have watched any Terrifier movie, you know that that poor minimum wage employee cashier of that Halloween store is about to get savagely removed from this earth. And well, that's exactly what happened. So yes, Art apparently does not appreciate minimum wage employees, because Art is mean. So Sienna and Johnny had a conversation in which he stated to her that something bad was going to happen that night.
Something really bad's gonna happen tonight. I know it.
Did you put these in here?
On the meantime, Ali, who is disposable character number 2, not Leah, Ali, was giving out candies for Halloween, of course, as every person does. But this time, someone rather peculiar, who we know who he is, which was Art the Clown, decided to knock on her door and ask for candies. And I mean, first of all, if someone that looked like that followed me to my house, I would arm myself with a rocket launcher. I don't care about what people say, I will be armed to my teeth, because what in the world was that? First of all. Second of all, she acted like sort of a Karen because she didn't want to give out candies to the poor Art the Clown, and Art was just asking for candies. And as Ali was very mean to Art, in return she will get some bad karma later. But long story short, she tossed candies at him, and then she looked into the black plastic bag that Art was carrying around, and she saw some torture devices that were soaked in liquid, if you know what red liquid it was.
If I give you candy, you'll leave? Here. Happy Halloween.
So a few hours later, Ali noticed that there was a black van parked outside of her house, and she was alone at night when Sienna was already all prepared to go for, well, to go and, you know, go into her party. Then Ali's house was broke into. Do you know by who? Yes, by Art the Clown. And I have to say something. If someone was to break into my house, the first thing I would do is run out of there. Don't even stick there to see who it is, get out of there. But of course, Ali, who is very intellectual and is a final girl in a horror movie, decided to run into her room, into a corner place where she cannot escape. And of course, she was like molested by Art. Now, I will give out the order of things that happened to her in a way that I will not be demonetized. I mean, I'm not even monetized yet, but I don't want this video to be age restricted. So here it goes. So firstly, she got her eye split. So she got an eye split, like from here to here. She was scalped, so this part of her scalp was removed. Then she was tossed into the bed, where she got an arm broken, like a chicken wing. And then thirdly, she was stabbed, slashed multiple times on the back, and then she got a hand split in two, like this, but like all the way like up to here, because I mean she has like gelatin arms or something. And then lastly, she was slashed more times. So yeah, that was the order of events of things that happened to Ali in less than 2 minutes. And while all of that was happening, Sienna was calling her to know when she was going to go to the party. But then Art just left the scene all happy for the things that he did, and then he came back with salt and bleach, and he, well, do you remember if you were an evil kid, when you poured salt into like a slug? Well, it was basically like this. And then Art decided to remove half the face of Ali because half of her face was molesting him for some reason. So a few moments later, Ali's mom came into the house, and you know, she realized that there was a broken window, a broken glass pane to be more exact, or more precise, and then she went into the second floor to find out that Ali was all mangled and that she was barely like somewhat recognizable of a human being because Art was still playing with her, removing chunks of flesh with a scalpel. And miraculously, or by a miracle, she was still alive and she just resuscitated for a mere second to basically just say "Mom," and then she was a goner now. And Art found this extremely funny because of course this is comedy. And then a few scenes later we see that Art decided to use Alice's mom's skull, to give out candies. So it is actually very good that Art is recycling the parts of his victims because Art is promoting recycling culture. So that's a positive right there. Now we are introduced to disposable character number 4, who is the boyfriend of disposable character number 3, who is the blonde friend, which I don't even know the name and I'm not even sure if the movie makes any effort to show her name, so she will be disposable 3 for now. So in any case, Jonathan was at the house and he had an argument with his mom because his mom tore the book of his dad where he was like drawing art and all of the victims of art. So that concluded in Jonathan spewing out the B word to his mom, which she was noticeably upset, and then he ran away from home while his mom was yelling at him. And I actually found this sort of hilarious because this is the second time in this movie that there's an adult screaming Jonathan to come back. Like, I mean, Jonathan must be a troubled child or must put himself through situations where he is perceived as the trouble because that's not normal. But in any case, that's what happened, so that's weird.
Jonathan, you get back here! Jonathan! Hey, no running in the hallways! Jonathan, get back here!
Now, the strangest part of this movie, let alone all of the murdery stuff and an evil clown that's also like half demon, half whatever, is that someone asked Sienna for a selfie in the middle of the dark, and they took the selfie, which I'm pretty sure it's the darkest selfie of the entire history of humanity because it was literally took in almost utter darkness. So, okay.
Yo, can I get a selfie? Fuck yeah, girl.
Sienna was in the party and then Sienna's mom called her to let her know that her car was now vandalized with shaving cream and toilet paper because apparently Jonathan, who ran away from the house, had the sufficient time to come back and vandalize the car with shaving cream and toilet paper, which I mean, no, but okay. And so her mom was noticeably upset and Sienna was feeling way too happy to just drink alcohol. So she confronted disposable number 3 about what she put on her drink, and disposable number 3 actually confessed that she might have had put some molly on her drink, which I mean that's what all good friends do for you, of course. And then lastly, Jonathan came across the black van, and when he came into the van, he saw Bajita with glowing eyes. And I mean, Bajita looks like someone who would literally stare at you on the middle of the dark and will offer you Herbalife. Yeah, just like that. I hate Herbalife people. I mean, do not support companies like that who are like a pyramid scheme, please do not. Herbalife sucks. And all other like pyramid scheming companies or MLMs, they suck. Do not support them. Okay, in any case, back to the movie. So now, back into the house, the mom was cleaning out the mess before Jonathan came back, and when she was cleaning the mess, she came across Michael Jackson. No, of course, it's not Michael Jackson, it's Art the Clown. And Art, Art decided to inform Sina's mom about capitalism, about how communism is a better way to live, and about fine art, fine, exquisite, delightful art. And with that I mean that he blew her head off her body with a shotgun. And then Sienna came across Bajita on the party, on a vision that wasn't so much of a vision. So they had to leave the party because Sienna was now all paranoid because the visions of Bajita. Did I say paranoid? Who's playing guitars? Sienna on the car received a call that Jonathan was in troubles and he was at the carnival. But interestingly enough, Bajita was imitating the voice of Jonathan because Jonathan actually came back to the house and he saw the remains of his mother being served the dinner by Art. So Art is a gentleman because he served the carcass of the mother of Jonathan the dinner. So that's a positive, but he was also sedated non-consensually with a syringe, so I guess bad on that, but good on the part of the dinner, but bad on the other parts. In any case, Bajita imitated the voice of Jonathan so to lure Sienna into the carnival.
Where are you? I'm at the old carnival. Eric and Sean left me here. I'm all alone. What is wrong with?
And of course, as Sienna is a very good sister, she decided to go into the carnival with disposable number 3 and 4. So once arriving into the carnival, Sienna decided to abandon the vehicle and go into the pursuit of Johnny. And Johnny the pony, oh well, actually that sounds funny. So he will now be Johnny the pony or the pony. So the pony was being molested by Bajita. Bajita decided to carve into her face some fine art, and with that I mean just some gross cuts, and that was also a vision. So Johnny the pony decided to run away from there, and on that temporary line, Sienna was like looking for the pony as well, but disposable number 3 and 4 were getting all like funky, if you know what I mean. And then disposable 3 actually confessed to us, the viewer, and to her boyfriend how the father of Sienna had like a brain something, and then he went mad and he was very abusive towards her, and he had a horrible end, and he was like basically born to Chris because he crashed his car consensually, and so he just basically took his own life. And disposable 4 of course couldn't care less because he just wanted to wet the brush, if you know what I mean. So they decided to use some more substances, and using that some substances they started to get like all aroused, if you know what I mean. And long story short is that disposable number 4 got out of the car and he got his kakunga stabbed repeatedly, and then his kakunga was placed into the windshield, and no, actually not the windshield, the driver's side window, and then Art smashed that window and pulled disposable number 3 out of the car, and before she was about to get the same treatment as disposable number 4, she just decided to like give out a kick to Art on the face. So yeah, I mean that's all it took. Literally just one kick to the face. Just one. So finally she was trapped into a bedroom where it was sort of a dead end, and unfortunately she was a goner, and I will tell the order of events that happened with her. So she got battery acid into her face, and then she was stomped repeatedly, breaking off a knee, and then being stomped in the chest, well no, being hidden on the chest with that contraption that Art was building that was like a maze with spikes, and then Art was feeling a little hungry, so he took the heart out of her body and he took a bite or two, because you know that's normal things that you do when you're hungry and there's available resources of food close to you. And Sienna, who was lost, was actually able to find her friend, but she came maybe just a little too late and her friend was now a goner. And Art, of course, found this scene sort of funny, so he was just standing there smiling rather weirdly. So this started the persecution in between this started the fight between Sienna and Art, in which Sienna was being tossed all around, putting no resistance, and Johnny the Pony was being pursued by Art. But Sienna is no dummy, so she decided to fight back, because she's the only fight back character of this movie, so she was fighting back by hitting Art with the same contraption that was used to end the life of disposable character number 3. And long story short, Art wasn't a goner, so he, with a contraption that was like sort of a whip, started whipping Johnny the Pony and Sienna, and it seemed like the end of both of them, but then Sienna decided to fight back to Art, and then Art was about to end her by choking her, non-consensually of course, because remember that Art is forgetting his manners, his gentleman manners. But Johnny the Pony grabbed the weapon of the ankle of Art, so Johnny the Pony shot Art, and this could possibly have been the end of Art, but no, it wasn't, because we still have like half an hour left. Of course, as half an hour is left, Sienna was still fighting with Art, and Art tossed her into the ground floor, where she was in front of a medical hole that had light bulbs in it and was like very mysterious. And then Art tossed Sienna into it, but not before stabbing her in the stomach, and then she was in a sort of that magician box, the ones that are filled with water and you need to escape, and a magic tentacle grabbed her ankle, and she was now in the clown universe, where the people who Art killed in the dream vision of Sienna were now like happy zombies. I want to be a happy zombie as well, so I'm waiting my invitation to go to the clown universe, but for now, into the summary again. And so Art, as he's very mean and he has no manners, he was molesting the poor Johnny the Pony, and he was biting off some parts of his leg, because Art has no manners and he cannot ask people if he can actually take a bite of them, so he just goes in, but he does not ask for permission. Art is very mean on that regard. So after being all mean and mighty with Johnny the Pony, he screamed for Sienna to revive, and with the mighty powers of the magical sword, she revived and she got free of her enclosure. But before getting free, a very interesting fact is that when she apparently was a goner, everybody was a goner as well. So they were happy zombies, but once she was gone, they are now just like corpses. So, okay. But now she revived, and the people apparently did not revive, but she was still alive. And as on the vision of the dad, when he drew Sienna decapitating a monster, she decided to go in and end the misogyny and the child exploitation of Art the Clown, because those are two things that should be not allowed. And so she beheaded Art. So Art is like the Marie Antoinette of the 21st century. So yeah, and that was the end for Art. Well, not really, because they are now a family without a mother, because remember that the mother is a goner indeed. And I mean, if you were to finish the murderous psychopathic demon clown, you would also need to finish the minion assistant, because the minion assistant just grabbed the head of Art and walked out of there like to do who knows, but I mean, you need to finish them both. You don't leave one of them to alive because it could revive or something, or they could like learn. Didn't you see Batman? Like things like that happen in Batman all the time. In any case, they are still together and happy and almost 99% intact. I'm pretty sure that those bites will leave out a mark behind, but fortunately there are some scar gels, so that's a positive, I guess. And lastly, I have to say that there was a post-credit scene where we are on a psychiatric ward where they were taking care of Vicky, but Vicky was not feeling very well. She was spewing her intestines out apparently, and she was bleeding all over the place, and with her blood she was grinning insults into the wall. But the most insulting one out of those insults that she wrote was Vicky plus art in a heart. And then she got like magically pregnant, like a white dove getting the Virgin Mary pregnant, but in this case it was just like evil forces, I guess. So Vicky got pregnant and she gave birth to the head of art, and the psychiatric assistant or the person in charge of like taking care of the psychiatric patients entered into that room, and she saw Vicky being all possessed, all demonic, with all the blood on the floor, holding the head of art, and everybody was like a happy family. And I just need to say something. If I were to see that, I would close that door, lit everything on fire, call an exorcist and a priest, and pretend that that never happened. Well, that would be me, but I mean, that's what you would do when you are confronted by a demon clown. So, I mean, and that's how Terrifier 2 ended. Oh my god, look who's here to make the finale of this video. Well, yes, it's me, with a Hot Topic inspired makeup of the 2000s, because this eyeshadow palette is also a killer, just like Art the Clown. So okay, in any case, I have a lot of things to say about how these movies were written, how these movies were produced, and how these movies overall were sort of a cultural impact afterwards and after the release. Well, to begin with, I just need to give a quick update. I did a perm on my hair, a permanent straightening procedure, and I actually almost got bald. So yes, I wouldn't recommend doing this at home. I almost lost my hair, but it was very funny. I would definitely do it again. So okay, it was a mess. Actually, no, also, this is being filmed like a week or maybe a week and a half after I concluded filming that video and editing. It has been a mess, let me tell you. But okay, long story short, this movie, the first critique that I would give to it, of the two movies actually, is that both of them are sometimes very overdrawn on regards to the dialogue, because it feels like you're just watching two people interacting, but not even with a meaningful interaction. It's more like a vapid interaction, like talking about nothing. And on the second movie that was corrected a bit, because we were able to know a little bit more about... what was the name? Well, on the second movie, we were able to know about the protagonist's friends, the protagonist's mom, who actually was a call center employee, and more of the backstory on the character. But on the first movie, the main issue was that we never really knew who the characters were, more than it was disposable. Everybody was disposable, to say the least, except for Art, of course, because Art seems to be the protagonist of the movie, because of course the movie is called Terrifier. Like, if not, it would be called like Vicky the Survivor or something like that. But yes, in regards to the writing, sometimes it feels like it's sort of amateur in that sense, that it could definitely need, or it could definitely have more improvement to be a better product overall. But it's not entirely bad. I have honestly seen more horrible movies, and with horrible I mean horribly written movies that are like AAA movies, or we would consider them to be AAA movies. For example, I don't know in which Conjuring we are, but the Conjuring like 11 or whatever it is was horrible. The Nun was horrible. So these movies aren't horrible, they are just mediocre in writing. Now, on regards to the cinematography and production, the first movie, it definitely feels like very low budget. Like when you're watching a movie and you know that they have like a budget of like $1 to $2 million at most, and that's like an exaggeration, that movie feels like it. But even the practical effects were mighty impressive, because you are actually able to see how people get sawn in half. You are able to see how people get like their skulls bashed. Like you're able to see like the entire thing. And they didn't skip on the blood, and they didn't skip on the gore, and on the brutality of the movie. In regards to the second one, it's definitely an improvement, and definitely there's a lot more budget. Even when they were using different lenses, I mean, I studied cinematography, I didn't conclude, I'll be honest, but I know that a lens that is able to blur the background, like for example on the shot where Sienna was being slashed with the whip, like pew pew pew, and the feathers were flying, like I know that that lens is expensive. So there's more production, the movie definitely feels more polished. So as I said from the beginning on the introduction of that movie, it's like the ugly sister, but if she got like a makeover, but on the inside she's still ugly because she's an ugly person overall. So more budget, prettier package, but the same thing on the inside. And my main complaint on the second movie is that at times it feels like it's way too long for its own sake. There is honestly a lot of dialogue, a lot of useless persecutions that could have definitely been cut out of the movie, because it's almost 2 hours long. No, actually it's like 2 hours long. And another critique that I will have on both movies is that we never really get to know who is Art the Clown. We know that he's like a psychomaniac clown person mime who is like immoral somehow, but we don't know what is he, if he's a demon, if he's just like a superhero or an anti-hero in this case. We don't really, well, we know nothing about him, we know nothing about the backstory of Art, and it's not even explained. And on the second movie he's like sort of also an entity, because he's able to summon another world, where Sienna was almost a goner on that world. But interestingly enough, we actually know nothing about Art. So it's the same case with Jeeper Creeper. We know nothing about Jeeper Creeper, but we know that he exists, and 2 movies out of 3 were good. So I'm pretty positive that there will be a Terrifier 3 coming anytime soon, probably next year. Yeah, we will definitely have a Terrifier 3, because this movie was actually able to rival Top Gun on the box office. So that is actually an accomplishment, let me tell you. And yeah, I mean, the movies were defiant. They stood themselves against the horde of mediocre horror movies. And I mean, this is sort of a bad horror movie because it's not scary, but it's very, very tense. So I will give props where props is due. And my overall score for this saga, it's, I would say, a 6.5. And this is a personal score for me, even with all of the flaws, with all of the perceived misogyny by me. If you think that this movie has nothing wrong, I respect your opinion. I have my opinion that sometimes women are the only ones who get horribly ravaged, but that's my opinion again. What else? Okay, yeah, the writing, the sort of misogyny or whatever you would like to call it, and the duration of the movies, that it's way too long for what it is. Yeah, that's it. I mean, if you just want to see a movie with no history at all, I mean, it has a timeline and it has a history and it's cohesive because both movies are intertwined, so that's good. That's very good, actually. No, actually, I will change my score. It's a 7. So yeah, the movies are a solid 7. Nothing else to add, really. So, I guess that's it. Is it? No, that's not it, because remember that I can be your favorite editor, so link below. And as always, I will end this movie in a high note.